This video will walk you through some typical calculations that you would see in Chapter 9. Corporation manufactures and sells a single product. The company uses units as the measure of activity in budgets and performance reports. During August, the company budgeted for 5,000 units, but its actual level of activity was 5,050 units. The company has provided the following data concerning the formulas used in its budgeting and its actual results for August. So data used in budgeting. You can see they gave us a fixed element and a variable element. Now revenue is considered variable because normally revenue is shown as a selling price per unit, and as the number of units sold increases, total revenue would increase. As total number of units decrease, total revenue decreases. Direct labor is always a variable element. Direct materials also always variable. Manufacturing and selling expenses which both have a fixed and a variable component as shown here. So total fixed cost is going to be $65,300 for the month. Total variable expenses per unit would be $24 versus the $42.40 per unit. Then they give us actual results for August. Revenues, cost, direct labor, revenue, total direct labor costs, total direct material costs, manufacturing overhead costs, and selling costs. So the first question asks, the net operating income in the planning budget for August would be closest to. So we want the net operating income in the planning budget. So first thing we want to know is that revenue is $42.40 per unit. And then we can look at our variable costs, which we know is $24 per unit. So if we take the difference, that gives us a contribution margin per unit of $18.40. So now it's asking for planning, and remember planning, we were told that company budgeted or planned for 5,000 units. So budgeted also means planned. So we take the $18.40, multiply that by 5,000. That gives us $92,000 in contribution margin, and then we subtract our fixed cost, which is budgeted at $65,300, which is $26,700. Now you could have gotten to this $92,000 by taking and multiplying $42.40 by 5,000 and the $24 per unit for cost times 5,000. Get what their totals are. And for revenue, that's $212,000. For the variable expense, that's $120,000. 212 minus 120, there's your $92,000. So what you need to remember, the shortcut is figure out what your contribution margin is per unit if it's given to you on a per unit basis like it was for us, and then multiply that by the number planned or budgeted, and that's going to give you your contribution margin, which is the same thing as taking total revenue versus my variable costs and getting contribution margin. Then you still subtract your total fixed costs, and this is going to give you your net operating income. So the answer is C. Next question says, the net operating income in the flexible budget for August would be closest to. Well, you got to remember the flexible budget is going to match what our actual units should be. And again, going back to the given information, tells us that the actual level of activity was 5,050 units. So we do the same thing again, We can see, remember, our contribution margin is going to still be the same no matter per unit. It's still going to be the same no matter how many units we sell. So our contribution margin per unit is still $18.40 per unit. But now we want to multiply it by 5,050. And when we do that, we get 92,920 Then we want to subtract our fixed cost. And that's still going to be the same as it was up here, because remember, it doesn't change with the level of activity. And therefore, our net operating income is now going to be equal to $27,620. And again, realize what we did here. In the first problem, try to go a little slower here, we used 5,000 units. In the second one, because flexible budget does exactly what actual results should be, it increased by 50 units. So we had net operating income when it was only 5,000 units of 26,700. When we increased it by 50 units, and because fixed cost doesn't change, we have an increase in our net operating income. So what it's trying to show you is, once you understand what your break-even number is, as you produce more, because fixed cost stays the same, that's how you can increase your net operating income. The key is, do you have the ability to keep selling more, or is the market saturated? 21. The activity variance for net operating income in August would be closest to. So here, what you want to remember is the activity variance focuses on the flexible budget versus the static budget. So we still start off with what's our contribution margin per unit, because it's the same no matter what budget we're looking at, and that's going to be the $18.40 per unit. We know our total fixed cost is still equal to $65,300. So what we want to do here now is look at that we have a flexible budget that's going to be equal to $18.40, and my flexible budget was 5,050 units. So 5,050 times 1840, that's 92,920 minus my fixed cost. I'm going to get 27,620. My static, and again, we did this all in the first two questions, but again, I'm just showing to you, is times the 5,000, and 1840 times 5,000 was 92,000. Subtract my fixed cost of 65,300. We're left with 26,700. Take the difference of the two, flex minus static. It's 920, because, and what you want to remember, revenue or net operating income, if it is positive after taking flex minus static, then that's going to be favorable. So it's going to be 920 favorable, or A. So again, when you take the difference of the flex minus the static, or if you're talking about revenue or spending variance, variance, if you take actual minus the flex for your revenue variance, for your revenue variance, long as revenue or net operating income difference is positive, it'll be favorable. If it's negative, then it's going to be unfavorable if you're talking about revenue or net operating income. And then, of course, it's the opposite for expenses. Okay, and our last question here. The overall revenue and spending variance. The variance for the net operating income and revenue and spending variance columns on the flexible budget performance report for August would be closest to. So again, now this is talking about, when we talk about revenue and spending variance, which I was just talking about above, it's going to be your actual minus your flexible information. So here, we know with the information we've received before that we know our actual results. Is equal to, we can go up here to the given information, 204,520. We subtract all of our expenses. You add up all your expenses, you get 184,880. Take the difference, your actual net operating income is going to be equal to 19,640. So 19,640. Then we compare that to our flexible budget, which we did above. Remember, if we go here, my flexible budget gives me net operating income of 27,620. So I get a variance of 7,980. And because this is negative, and it's representing net operating income difference, the triangle means difference, this is going to be unfavorable. Or the answer would be C. So again, what I did here again, this is my net operating income. Revenue is my expenses for actual. What is my net operating income? Flexible budget. When you take the difference, actual minus flexible budget, I get a negative. And because I'm looking at the difference in net operating income, a negative, just like a negative revenue difference, is unfavorable. And again, they were asking, they said the overall revenue and spending is just another way of saying net operating income. That's why they said the variance for net operating income. So overall revenue and spending variance gives you the bottom result. It's asking what is your difference in net operating income from your actual versus your flexible.